It goes without saying that Joker has done some truly reprehensible things to Harley Quinn. He's warped her mind, abused her both psychologically and physically, and imbued her with an occasionally questionable fashion taste. But mercifully, Harley has also gotten in a series of pretty good jabs at the Joker during her time in the comics, even if they were significantly less traumatic than her own personal suffering. While it might seem weird that the bad things she does to him are kind of justified, it's worth remembering that doing a bad thing to someone who deserves it is still a bad thing. And if there's anyone who deserves their comeuppance, it's the clown prince of crime, so who better to dole some karma out than his long-suffering sidekick? I am the clown princess that is Kirsten from What Culture, and these are the 10 worst things Harley Quinn has done to the Joker. Number 10. Biting off his lip. Harley Quinn, Volume 2, Number 25. Seeing an ex you've had a bad past with is never easy. Seeing an ex who tried to kill you several times and probably never loved you is a little worse than that. And also exactly the case for Harley when she reunites with the Joker after giving up on him totally and instead being a surprisingly steadfast member of the Suicide Squad. The pair exchange insults and then exchange punches, culminating in Quinn making things a little more serious by biting a chunk of the Joker's bottom lip off. It's not the most relaxed way to tell someone you're done with them, sure, but it sends a very clear message, and that can't be denied. It's also a smart way to hurt the jester, because it harms one of the few things he actually cares about: his smile. Number 9. Killing his replacement. Harley Quinn, Volume 3, Number 14. After Harley finally left the Joker, it's safe to say that the villain realised quickly what a mistake he had made. Not because he loved Harley per se, but because she was usually the one breaking him out of Arkham Asylum, and now his escapes would likely take far longer. To occupy himself in this time, the Clown Prince of Crime trains a man named Edwin, who writes the Joker to tell him he's fallen in love with Harley. You know, like an idiot. And so the Joker plans the ultimate prank against Harley, setting Edwin up so he looks, speaks, and acts like the purple and green murder machine, and works so well that Quinn legitimately believes Edwin is the clown, right up until she has to change his clothes when he's in a traffic accident. Harley's worries about Edwin's misplaced scars are confirmed when she manages to notice the one difference between him and the actual Joker: their genitals. Instead of the prank the Joker was hoping for, Harley tortures Edwin and then kills him, making all of his training a big old waste of time. Number 8. Stealing his cut-off face. Suicide Squad, Volume 4, Number 7. When the Joker's torn-off face appeared in the annals of Detective Comics, it seemed a sure sign that the clown had been killed. After all, take literally any of the other supervillains and cut their face off, and they're as good as murdered, unless they didn't have face skin in the first place, which is actually weirdly common. Only the Joker wasn't actually dead. He was in hiding, having asked the doll maker to carve off his face for a bit of a laugh. As such, it seems as though he let the Gotham City Police Department find his carved off face flesh while he was recovering so that it would be in safekeeping for whenever he wanted it back. Which makes it pretty damn funny that Harley stole the face from the evidence lockers during her time with the Suicide Squad, because although we're never shown it, you can guarantee that the Clown Prince of Crime had a bit of a freak out when he found out that his face had been stolen, and he might never be able to get it back. Number 7. Not telling him about his child. Injustice. For the child of two supervillains, Lucy Quinzel is a pretty lucky kid. Despite the fact that her dad being the Joker should have ruined her life, she appears to have grown up pretty normal. This can be put down to the fact that Harley had the good sense to realise that raising a baby amongst explosive whoopee cushions is a terrible idea, instead giving Lucy to her sister to raise as her own. It's wild to think about how differently she could have turned out. Instead of a pale-faced, hammer-wielding infant maniac, she's a character who could easily fit into the background of most comic scenes, although she is still pale, because being ginger means that's sort of your fate. While the Joker would be furious to find out his potential villainous heir is instead an ordinary kid, you have to be glad that Lucy somehow still got to live a good life, against all the odds. Number 6. Trying to kill him. Batman, Prelude to the Wedding. While the majority of Batman Preludes to the Wedding is focused unsurprisingly on the Dark Knight and Catwoman preparing to get married, other storylines do make an entrance. The best of these by a long shot has to be seeing Harley try to stone cold murder her former lover. Because Harley doesn't try and kill the Joker in a regular fashion. No. she instead decides that she simply must murder him by drowning him in tapioca, the type of pudding that her puddin hates most. This fails, but Harley appears to actually hope it will. She spends the rest of their fight explaining how messed up their relationship was, before getting whacked in the head with an axe by the escaped clown. But even this goes in Harley's favour, as the villain realised he moved the axe at the last second to avoid beheading Quinn, making him realise that he does actually care about her. And for someone like the hateful jester, that's the worst thing that could have possibly happened. Number 5, going on a date with Batman. Harley Quinn Valentine's Day Special. In a wonderful twist of fate, one of the best insults to the Joker is one that neither him nor Harley are aware of. Given that Harley has canonically been on 2 dates with Bruce Wayne, she has technically dated Batman, albeit without realising. But as a reader, you can still get a strange sense of satisfaction out of knowing that the Joker's former partner managed to go on a date with his worst enemy. In fact, it might actively be funnier that Harley doesn't actually know, as she hasn't actively sought out Batman's alter ego, but rather they've been brought together by fate. In short, it's basically a comic justice that Harley and Bats have dated in the past, even if Bruce definitely felt pretty weird about it at the time. Number 4, killing him. DCEASED. DCEASED is one of the most cathartic comics in existence. If there's ever an injustice you wanted to see have a righteous conclusion, there's a good chance you'll see it in the DC's superhero zombie apocalypse. For example, we get a healthy dose of this when Harley accidentally reunites with the Alabaster Jester, only to discover he has also become one of the undead. In true zombie film fashion, the zombified clown charges Harley, who then gets to blast him in the stomach with a sawn-off shotgun. Despite it being the biggest cliché from the zombie genre of all time, you still don't fully expect it to happen. Still half sure that Harley will find she can't hurt him and be bitten by the Joker instead. And this is probably what a coherent Joker would have wanted for her hilarious final fate, which makes it all the more satisfying when she's the one to make him go from being undead to just plain dead. Number 3, quitting. Various. For a good while in the world of comics, Harley leaving the Joker only to come back the next time he said he'd change was a tragic inevitability. As many times as Harley would realise Jay was no longer good for her, she'd also compulsively want to believe he was going to improve, no matter how many times he fed her the same tired lies about treating her better. However, Harley left the Joker for good before, most notably during her time in the Suicide Squad, where she goes back to beat the criminal up in jail and cement their separation. And while this has been good for Quinn, both in her character development and in us getting to see her outside of being the Joker's long-suffering lackey, it's terrible for the Joker. Having spent so long being able to win his Harlequin back whenever he wanted to, her independence forces him to confront the fact that actually she was never his in quite the way he always thought. Number 2, almost killing Batman. Mad Love. As such an iconic comic, Mad Love is usually held as an example of the relationship between the Joker and Harley Quinn. While it certainly does that, the rest of the comic is often overlooked. This is an absolute shame, as one very important thing that happens in the story, namely Harley almost killing the Batman, only to be stopped by the Joker himself. Hilariously, Harley's attempt to help her boo results in him being furious, actively sabotaging her plan. As his arch nemesis, Jay wants to be the one who finally finishes off the Dark Knight once and for all. To fail at that, only for the sidekick he looks down on to almost actually do it? The clown's worst nightmare. And for a guy who is most people's worst nightmare, that says a whole lot. Number 1, helping Batman. Various. For someone often considered a villain, it would likely surprise many to see how often Harley works with the Dark Knight. While they're generally at one another's throats, Quinn's motivation for taking down Bats is usually linked to her desire to please her former chuckling paramour, and in that alone. And so when Harley finds herself freed from the Jester's grasp, she usually has no beef with Batman, aside from when she does the occasional crime, since deep down she does want to help Gotham. She often tries to help, to varying degrees of success. This is an entirely heroic endeavour on Harley's part, but it's also one that's hilarious when you think about just how much it must ruin Joker's rep. After spending years bragging about how he warped his girlfriend's mind and turned her to the side of evil, he now has to watch in horror as his ex helps the needy and does everything he never would. In short, you have to hope that the entire of the Iceberg Lounge makes fun of old Mr. J for this absolutely constantly. And that's our list. What do you think was the worst thing that Harley has ever done? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. But for now, I've been Kirsten from What Culture, and I'll see you in the next one.